After being publicly humiliated by her family during a company dinner, a young woman decides to rebuild her life from scratch. While her parents and siblings consider her a failure, she quietly builds an empire that no one expected. When the truth finally comes to light, revenge does not arrive with anger, but with the crushing weight of success they will never reach. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss true stories of redemption, justice, and personal rebirth. The fork fell from my plate with a clink that seemed to amplify in the sudden silence of the room. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me, while my father, standing by the podium, kept talking into the microphone as if nothing had happened. "And for this reason?" he said with that smile I knew all too well. "We decided not to include my daughter Elena on the board of directors. Let's be clear. Not everyone is born with a talent for business." Polite laughter spread through the tables of the Palazzo Veneto Hotel. I was there at that gala dinner for the 30th anniversary of the Marchetti construction family business, wearing a dress I had saved for months to buy, and my father had just humiliated me in front of 300 people. My name is Elena Marchetti. I'm 27 years old, and that night in November 2018, I finally realized that in my family I would always be invisible. My mother, sitting at the head table, sipped champagne without even looking at me. My older brother, Matteo, 32, the company vice president, despite his only qualification being the firstborn male, shot me a look of fake compassion. My younger sister, Beatrice, 25 and marketing manager solely because of our surname, was already posting photos of the event on Instagram. Like and subscribe to our channel if you've ever felt like you weren't enough for your family. That night I didn't go home. I took my 2005 Fiat, the one Matteo called the shame cart, and drove to the tiny studio apartment I rented in Lambrate on the outskirts of Milan. Not the elegant Brera district where my family lived, but an 1970s building with peeling plaster and an elevator that worked every other day. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my dress, and I cried, not because of the public humiliation, which was just the last in a long series. I cried because I finally understood. I would never be enough for them. It didn't matter how many degrees I earned, how many projects I presented, or how hard I worked. I was the middle child, the one born with the wrong chromosome to inherit an empire of concrete and steel. That night I made a decision. I would no longer seek their approval. I would bury her along with the Elena who desperately wanted to be seen. In her place, someone new would be born. The following Monday, I didn't show up at the office. I called my mother to tell her I was taking time to reflect. She replied in a bored tone, "Well, dear, perhaps that's for the best. Your father says you just take up space." I just took up space. Her words embedded in my mind like glass shards. In the following days, I emptied my tiny bank account. 307. Everything I'd saved working part-time during college and with the ridiculous family salary my father gave me to keep me quiet. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I had a degree in civil engineering and a specialization in sustainable building. While Marchetti Construction kept building with last century's methods, I had studied bioarchitecture, eco-friendly materials, energy efficiency. I had presented 3 innovative projects to my father in the last 2 years, all rejected with the same phrase: "Too complicated, Elena. The market isn't ready." But I knew he was lying. The market was ready. It was they who were not. I started working as a freelancer, offering consulting to small construction firms wanting green certifications. The first months were brutal. I ate plain pasta 4 times a week, canceled subscriptions, avoided turning on the heat until the cold became unbearable. But every small contract was a victory, not for the money, but for the proof that I had value. In January 2019, 3 months after that dinner, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Sergio Fontana, owner of a small sustainable renovation business in Bergamo. He had found me through a forum for green architects. "I saw your project for the recovery of the old factory in Sesto San Giovanni," he said with a rough but kind voice. "The one your father rejected, a friend of mine told me about it. It's brilliant. Do you want to build it with me?" My heart stopped. "Seriously? For real?" "I have the funds. You have the brains. We split everything down the middle. What do you say? I said yes before I even thought about it. It was a huge risk. But what did I have to lose? My family had already considered me a failure. For the next 6 months, I worked 16 hours a day. I designed, coordinated, negotiated with suppliers who at first laughed when a 27-year-old woman showed up, but when they saw the numbers, the calculations, the project's efficiency, they changed their tune. The old factory became a zero-impact residential complex. Solar panels, rainwater harvesting, then thermal insulation with recycled materials. It cost 15% less than a traditional building and guaranteed energy savings of 60%. When it was completed in September 2019, it made headlines in trade journals. Young engineer revolutionizes sustainable construction in Milan. Read an article on Il Portale. My family didn't notice a thing. Why would they have? I was Elena, the one who just took up space. But I was building something, and I wasn't done yet. With the profits from the Sesto San Giovanni project, I founded my company. Verde Edile S.A.A. Simple, direct name. No Marchetti in the logo. No reference to the family that had thrown me away. I hired 3 people. Marco, a 30-year-old architect who, like me, had been ignored by big firms, Lucia, an environmental engineer with revolutionary ideas, and Davide, an experienced surveyor who knew every bureaucratic shortcut in Lombardy. We worked out of a tiny office above a pizzeria in Città Studi. The smell of basil would rise through the floorboards while we designed projects that would change the face of Milan. By the end of 2020, despite the pandemic that had paralyzed the sector, Verdile had completed 4 redevelopment projects, small, yes, but profitable. And above all, perfect, 0 delays, 0 disputes, and enthusiastic clients. We started receiving calls from larger companies. They wanted collaborations and consulting. A company in Brescia offered us a contract to design an entire eco-sustainable neighborhood. The budget was 4.5 million euros. I accepted. And as I signed that contract, I thought of my father saying, Elena has no talent for business. Write in the comments what you would have done in my place. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of rebirth like this one. In the meantime, my family continued their usual life. Matteo posted photos of construction sites he had never visited. Beatrice sponsored luxury handbags on Instagram, using the Marchetti name as if it were a personal merit. My mother organized charity dinners where she bragged about her successful children, plural, but meaning only 2. I no longer existed to them, and that was exactly what I wanted. In March 2022, I received a proposal that changed everything. An international investment fund, Green Future Capital, wanted to acquire 40% Verdi Edile for 8 million euros. Ahaye. They would provide us with access to European projects, partnerships with universities, and global visibility. I asked for 3 days to think about it. In reality, it took me 3 hours, then I signed. With that money, we expanded the company. We opened offices in Rome and Turin. I hired 50 people. And we invested in research and development for innovative materials. Verde Edile was no longer a startup. It was a reality. And finally, in October 2022, the moment I had waited 4 years for arrived. I was in the office, the new one with a view of the Duomo, when Lucia walked in with a smile she couldn't contain. Elena, you won't believe this. What? Marchetti Costruzioni has posted a tender. They are looking for outside consultants for a sustainable redevelopment project. They say they want to modernize the company. My heart stopped. Then it started beating so hard I thought it would explode in my chest. Should we apply? Lucia asked. I smiled. A slow, knowing smile, yes, but with a different name. I used a subsidiary of Verde Edile Green Tech Solutions, which was registered to Marco. On paper, I had nothing to do with it. We prepared the most competitive proposal on the market. Fair prices, certain timelines, impeccable references, and above all, innovation that Marchetti Costruzioni had never seen. 2 weeks later, we received confirmation. We had been chosen. The first meeting was set for November 15, 2022, exactly 4 years after that dinner. I entered the Marchetti Costruzioni conference room in a dark gray suit and heels that made me look taller. My hair, which I used to wear loose, was pulled back in an impeccable chignon. I wore thin-rimmed glasses that I didn't need but which completely changed my appearance. Sitting around the table were my father, Matteo, Beatrice, and 3 managers I didn't know. No one recognized me. "Good morning," I said in a calm voice. "I am Engineer Moretti, a representative of Green Tech Solutions. Thank you for choosing us." My father nodded distractedly. "Already bored?" Matteo was staring at his phone. Beatrice was filing her nails under the table. I presented the project. Every slide, every chart, every number was perfect. I talked about bioarchitecture, emission reduction, LEED certifications, and long-term energy savings. Concepts I had tried to explain to my father years earlier, and which he had dismissed as university theories. Now he listened to them as if they were a revelation. "Impressive," he said at the end. "I didn't know the market was so advanced." "It has been for years," I replied with a polite smile. "You just need the courage to adapt." In the following months, I worked elbow to elbow with my family without them knowing who I was. Every time Matteo complained about how demanding the green tech consultants were, I smiled. Every time my father said, "These young people know their stuff," I nodded. The project was an extraordinary success. Marche Costruzioni received its first European environmental certification. The newspapers covered it, and investors took interest. In June 2023, during the official presentation of the completed project, my father went on stage in front of 200 guests. "I want to thank Green Tech Solutions for guiding us through this transformation," he said into the microphone. "In particular, Engineer Moretti, who has demonstrated rare expertise in this sector." I stood up to receive the applause, and as I walked toward the stage, I took off my glasses. My father's smile froze. "Hi, Dad," I said softly into the microphone. "It's me, Elena, the one you thought had no talent for business." The silence that followed was absolute. I could feel the breath of 300 people suspended in the air. Green Tech Solutions is a subsidiary of Verde, Ideal, the company I founded 4 years ago. The one now worth 16 million euros. The one that has completed 32 sustainable redevelopment projects across Italy. The one you never noticed because you were too busy laughing at my failure. My father opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Matteo had turned pale. Beatrice had stopped breathing. "So thank you," I continued. "Thank you for teaching me that your contempt was the best fuel I could have had. Thank you for showing me that true strength doesn't come from approval, but from determination. And thank you for giving me the privilege of rebuilding myself from scratch, without the weight of your name." I left the microphone on the stand and walked off the stage. No one applauded. No one spoke. I left that room with my head held high and my heart finally light. In the following months, Marche Costruzioni tried to contact me. Formal emails, then phone calls, then desperate messages. They wanted to reconnect, they wanted to value the family talent. In short, they wanted me to save them. I replied to everyone with the same sentence. "I'm not interested. Good luck." My father wrote me a letter, a physical letter, in his shaky handwriting. "Elena, I'm sorry for how I treated you. I didn't realize what you were worth. Can we talk?" I read it once, then burned it in the kitchen sink, watching the paper blacken and disintegrate. There was nothing left to say. The time for words had passed. Today, in 2025, Verde Ideale is one of the leading companies in the sustainable construction sector in Italy. We have projects in France, Germany, and Spain. I employ 120 people, and every time I sign a contract, every time we inaugurate a building, every time I receive an award, I think of that dinner in 2018. I think of the fork that fell from the plate, the polite laughter, and my father saying, "Not everyone is born with a talent for business." And I smile, because I wasn't born with that talent. I built it, brick by brick, project by project, humiliation after humiliation. And while they continue to call me, to look for me, to want me, I keep building. Not for revenge, not to prove anything to them. I'm doing this because I finally know who I am. I am Elena Marchetti, and I don't take up space. I create it. And what would you have done in my place? Write in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more true stories of redemption and personal justice.